All right, let's dive right into this explainer. If you're thinking today's World Cup matchup between France and Spain is just another game, well, you might want to think again. This isn't just about advancing to the next round, it is a high-stakes, philosophical duel for the literal soul of modern football tactics. I am so pumped to break this down with you today, because what happens on the pitch here, it's going to ripple out and completely shape how the beautiful game is played for years to come.
So here is our game plan for today. We'll start with the myth, then look at Spain's orchestra, followed by France's free jazz. After that, we'll dive into the midfield battleground, and finally wrap up with the tactical future.
All right, Section 1, the attack versus defense myth.
You know, on paper, it's really tempting to fall into this lazy narrative, right? The idea that this is just a simple battle between the tournament's best defense and its best attack. But honestly, the modern game is way more complex than that. Here is the actual dichotomy we're looking at. Spain's incredibly rigid, structured positional system squaring off against France's evolving, completely free-flowing individual interpretation. That is the true clash we are dealing with today.
Which brings us to Section 2, Spain's positional game orchestra.
Right now, Spain possesses the most complete tactical idea at this World Cup by an absolute mile. They lean super heavily into the positional game, which is basically the Pep Guardiola approach, if you're familiar with that, meaning almost everything Spain does with the ball is strictly dictated by the team's structural position on the pitch, relative to where the ball is. This kind of deep tactical integration gives their players highly defined roles. Actually, there's a really strong argument that this rigid structure is exactly why young superstar Lamine Yamal hasn't just been out there freewheeling. He's executing such a specific, demanding role that it literally exhausts his double markers. I mean, he is forcing them to get subbed off early because they're just completely gassed.
Now look at this number for a second. 1. That is the single goal Spain has conceded so far, which is an immense defensive record. But the crucial takeaway here isn't just the number, it's how they got it. They haven't achieved this by parking the bus and sitting back. No way. Spain actually does almost all of their defending high up in forward areas. They just monopolize possession closer to the opposition's goal.
And they sustain that crazy high pressure through a relentless counterpress. Check out the staggering stat. On average, they win the ball back just 11.57 seconds after losing it. 11.57 seconds. That makes them the quickest of all the quarterfinalists to regain possession. They are literally just snapping at the heels of the opposition the second they lose the ball.
Moving over to Section 3, France's free jazz attack.
So here is the total antithesis to Spain. Didier Deschamps has essentially built the ultimate anti-Deschamps team here. Instead of strict positioning, France leans heavily into an evolving tactical framework called relationism. He's empowering his stellar attackers to play with just unprecedented freedom. He releases them from much further back on the pitch and basically trusts them to organically interpret the game as it happens. And the results? A staggering 16 goals in just 6 games. It's wild.
It truly is a genuine philosophical duel playing out on the biggest stage imaginable. I think this quote sums it up perfectly. The idea of a finely tuned orchestra coming up against brilliant, spontaneous free jazz has rarely been as applicable as it is right here.
But let's be real for a second. This relationist approach, it only works because of the astoundingly high quality of their players. You simply cannot play free jazz unless you have absolute maestros in your band. And just look at the arsenal France is working with. Mikel Olise, who's cementing himself as a top 5 player globally right now. You've got elite young talents like Desiree Doué and the effervescent Bradley Barcola. Throw in a Ballon d'Or winner and Ousmane Dembele, and of course Kylian Mbappe, who is looking totally liberated and just incredibly greedy for space.
Okay, part 4, the ultimate midfield battleground. So where is this clash actually going to be won or lost? Right here, the middle of the park. France has this structural friction point that's definitely been niggling away at the shops. Because their talent model never really adopted that Spanish-Dutch approach like, say, the Germans did, they're completely missing a classic number 6 archetype. They don't have a Rodri. To adapt, Deschamps is relying on an industrious 2-man midfield, with Adrien Rabiot and Aurélien Tchouameni. But here's the problem. Against Spain's highly structured 3-man midfield, France is going to find themselves numerically swarmed. That being said, Spain's got a massive tactical headache of their own. Remember how we just talked about Spain defending super high up the pitch, leaving a vast expanse of green grass in their own half? Well, Mbappe and Dembele are going to be looking at that space, licking their lips. So when you watch the match, keep an eye out for how Spain adapts. They're likely going to pull their usually high possession shape back by about 20 meters. They absolutely have to do this to avoid leaving their half totally exposed to France's searing pace. So you'll see Spain trying to slowly turn the screw with possession, while France waits to just pounce on any slight break in play. And finally, Section 5, deciding football's tactical future.
Let's zoom out for a second. In a purely tactical sense, this matchup means so much more than any modern World Cup game, because it is putting two vastly different talent production models to the ultimate stress test. Obviously, no one can play Spain's positional game quite like Spain. But conversely, France is the very first team to pose this specific, highly individualistic ideological challenge on a scale this massive. It is the ultimate showdown of established rigid structure versus deeply empowered individual talent.
So, as we watch this incredible matchup unfold, we really have to ask ourselves, when the final whistle blows and the dust settles on this clash of contrasts, will the precise, highly integrated orchestra or the brilliant, interpreting free jazz end up serving as the blueprint for the next era of the beautiful game? Keep these frameworks in the back of your mind when you watch, and I promise, you're going to see a whole new layer to the sport.